Hey Casey, so I've taken a look at your stuff, and I'm sorry it's taken me so long to get back to you. But a couple of things sort of rose to the surface, and I also had a few questions that I had. First of all, this page of your spreadsheet is fantastic. Like, this really helped me understand kind of where you want to go with your research and what your focus is going to be on. I also feel like you have a really good foundation between your matrix and your questions. A lot of your ideas are really kind of forming together, so I think you're starting from a really good place. There's a couple of things that you may want to do as far as pulling in either like a test or a survey to help you with your data. So I'm just going to sort of go through a couple of things in your spreadsheet, and then we're going to take a look at a couple of resources. So first of all, with your research questions that you have up here, I like the connections that you're making. A recommendation that I have with your research is you talk about the equity initiatives, and then you're measuring those by academic data and then also by disciplinary data. What I would recommend doing is try to find a couple of scholarly articles or even a couple of book chapters where other researchers have made those connections, so that way you are not trying to do original research to make those connections. You can sort of validate, hey, a connection does exist between equity initiatives or the presence of an equity team on a school campus with academic data and with disciplinary data. So if you can find even just 2 or 3 sources that make those connections for you, that would be great, because you'll have to continually sort of reach back and refer to those as you make those connections in your own research. All right, scrolling down just a little bit further. In your operationalize it right here in your sections 8 through 15 on your spreadsheet, this was really helpful in helping me understand sort of the process that you're going to take. I feel like Candace really did steer you in the right direction, because collecting data from 36 schools is a lot in like capital letters, not just lowercase. So I do think that's a good strategy to survey all the schools and then whittle it down to a couple of particular locations. So scrolling down a little bit further as we get to I see you have some of Candace's questions listed here. I didn't know if you wanted to pull those into your research at all, or if you wanted to keep those separate. So I'll just kind of let them be down there. All right. So we talked about making the connection between your equity team and equity initiatives with that academic and disciplinary component, and you can do that through the literature. But in terms of having a tool or a test or a measure or something that you can implement, there's a couple things I would recommend. First, you're going to be collecting that raw data from the school, so that academic data, and if you go that route, I would check in with the schools to see if there are either end of grade testing or some other type of benchmark measure that the school uses where you can pull that data, and that would be more of a quantitative piece. Same thing with your disciplinary data. I think as long as you go in with your parameters, which you've got right down here in B, C, and D, that's your quantitative piece. Where I think it could get interesting with some qualitative data is to either, this will be more difficult IRB wise, if you did a survey or an interview with the students. That would be more difficult just because you're talking about minors. Or you could do your survey or interviews with the members of the equity team. So if you were doing that, I did find a couple of resources that you might want to consider. One is this equity toolkit for administrators, and it's by the Colorado Department of Education. They are tied in with Colorado State University, and their School of Education is they produce a lot of really good stuff. What I wanted to point out in this piece is if you scroll through it, and it breaks it apart in these really good sections. So you could even choose which sections you felt like fit best with the focus of your study. But at the end of each one of those sections, they have guiding questions. You could run this past your dissertation coach to see if the fact that this is already published in a toolkit lends itself to the validity of the questions so that you don't have to do any validity measures yourself. I think that this would lend itself to already being validated just because I used Dr. Bennett's interview questions for mine. I did get permission. I don't know that you would have to get permission per se to use this as long as you cited that this is where the questions came from and as long as you didn't change those questions. But like I say, each section has those guiding questions and they're written pretty well, so and there are a lot to choose from. So I thought you might be interested in that, and I'll send this to you in an email. In the tested measures database, I'm going to pull that up really quick. So I'm going to click databases by title, and then M and mental measurements. So I did 2 different searches here, and that brought up 2 different pools of material that you might want to look at. I started out with diversity. And it brought up these 2. So I did change the search so it was diversity alone and not diversity in education. And it brought up much more to pick from. There were several in here that I thought were really good options that you may want to explore further and read the information about. Let's see. Let me scroll down. I think it was on the next page. So this diversity awareness profile was the one that I thought might be the best fit in understanding sort of the mental framework of your equity team, just because they go into, I forgot where the description is. I think it's further down. But this one, they go into understanding what the equity team's personal biases are, and does that influence their actions as a member of a diversity team. There was that one, and there's, the diversity awareness profile. Yes, the diversity awareness profile, that was the one that I thought you really ought to take a look at. Even though it says that it's for employees or managers, I think that this could still be very easily applied to education as well. Let's see, the other search that I did was equity in education. Oh, maybe I didn't do in education. Maybe I just did equity. There we go. And as you can see, if you look through this one, there's going to be some similarity in the result list. All right, I'm going to go ahead and publish this to YouTube and get it sent to you. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email.